Welcome back to Cinematic. I'm Ryan, and we're doing Best of the Best 2 this week. I think proof that they continued to make 80s movies in the 90s. And this will just be about Best of the Best 2. I know I talked about possibly doing 2 and 3 in the same episode. I think I'm fine. And I say that having liked Best of the Best 1 and 2. They are maybe odd for this series of movies that I'm doing here on Cinematic. They're definitely, like, I would say Best of the Best 1 is the first, maybe only entry so far in kind of the dudes rock subgenre, if I could borrow a term. There's way more high fives per capita in the Best of the Best series than maybe your normal or average Hong Kong action or even just action. It's an American action movie. It's also more of a sports drama. I think I was careful to make the distinction for Best of the Best 1 as well. Like, it's both. It's a martial arts film and a sports drama. It's just the scales are tipped way in the sports drama direction. And I'm sure I'll talk about that some more. But I liked it, I think, is what I want to say first and foremost, even if I'm like, this is different or whatever I have to say from here on out. Because when Eric Roberts, Philip Rhee, and Chris Penn are good on camera, they're good on camera. And Simon Rhee, actually, not to skip over that. In fact, that final fight in the Best of the Best 1 could not have happened if it weren't for two consummate martial artists that had been, at it their whole entire lives, and with each other for that matter. Like, you don't get that final scene unless it's between Philip Rhee and Simon Rhee. The director, Robert Radler, is also the same as it was in the first one. And I don't think I talked about this, but he came from the music video world. He actually directed the music video for Bad to the Bone for George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Also some stuff for Survivor, Crosby, Stills and Nash. And apparently just answered an ad in the Hollywood Reporter that was placed there by Philip Rhee asking for a director of a martial arts film. And I guess Radler's thinking was that he had grown up somewhat in the boxing world because his dad was a boxer, that this might be somewhat up his alley. And I would say was confirmed. But that was it. He called Philip Rhee and they hit it off. And Best of the Best 1 was his first feature. Best of the Best 2 is his second. And in it, Wayne Newton hosts an underground fight club called the Coliseum. Brackus is the current champion and owner. I guess that's the way it works. If you win the entire, you fight up the ranks, you keep the place and run it. And Brackus is well entrenched, it seems, in that at this point in the film. Played by Ralph Moeller, by the way, who you might actually recognize. He was in plenty of stuff back then and beyond. He was a German bodybuilder, certainly in fact, I guess was pretty good friends with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But he was Conan himself, I think, in a TV series is what it was. He was also in Universal Soldier, Gladiator, Scorpion King. Anyone? And he's also the very obvious, the moment he shows up in the movie, you're like, oh, that's the final boss. We've found the final boss. And it's actually Chris Penn that takes the first shot, while Eric Roberts Alex and Philip Rhee Tommy are out playing My Two Dads. They took Alex's son Walter, who was in the first movie, just a smaller kid. Here he's grown up and in fact is about to take his black belt test and fails it. So they go back to the house and Tetris alert. In fact, it's My Tetris. It's the 1989 North American version for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it plays itself, or maybe he's just watching the demo. I don't know. He turns around and it keeps going. It's not even, at least in, what was it? Police Story 3, right? Where they go in and the bad guy is playing the Genesis version, and even though the music is off and some other things, it doesn't keep going when he turns around. I don't think. Actually, now I'm curious. Anyway, Chris Penn dies. He kind of forces the match between him and Brackus before he's climbed up the ranks. Not that I think that would have made a difference necessarily, and certainly not in the story. His death is the impetus for kind of everything else that happens. Revenge or payback is the order of the day, kind of across the board for the movie. And it very much works because they've set up a pretty awesome bad guy in Brackus In fact, the whole organization is rotten. Brachus is ready to kill him and turns to the crowd, and they give the old, thumbs down, really Colosseum style. And Wayne Newton's there egging them on as well. And that's what leads to Chris Penn's death. So you love to hate the whole entire thing. So I'll take payback any day. But there's some back and forth too. Alex and Tommy show up to put Brachus through a mirror at one point. So he sends some guys out to kill them. And it's all, again, very American action-wise. Although Philip Reed, being the accomplished martial artist that he is, he gets a lot of technical stuff. In fact, if I had to guess, so he's the Taekwondo, Hapkido, and I think eventually Wing Chun and just straight up boxing, if Wikipedia is to be believed, but also you can see it in the film, is what I'm getting at. He does get some technical moments for sure. In fact, I would say probably Hapkido-wise with all the joint locks and stuff that he's got going on, but also plenty of kicks. So I like it. It plays well off of Alex's style, which is again more of a brawler, kind of a one-punch man. Is that what a one-punch man does? Eric Roberts might have a little less screen time in this one comparatively, certainly when it comes to the action, I want to say, but it's not any less for it. Like it doesn't feel lopsided or anything like that. And he's right there with Philip Reed in the middle of this movie. They escape to this farm where they have the whole entire training montage portion of the film, headed up by a member of Tommy's family played by Sonny Landham, who I didn't know the name, but he looked familiar. And also, like, after one or two lines, you're like, oh, this guy has been in something. Like the way they treat him also, they're like, okay, this is the guy we got for this movie, or one of the guys. In fact, the cast for this movie, actually, and I know the first had James Earl Jones and it kind of did this as well. We'll come back to Sonny Landham. But Mike Genovese is back, who it's impossible you don't or won't recognize. Patrick Kilpatrick, quite possibly as well. Eden Gross, who plays the kid, this is more of a deep cut, was from the Child's Play movies. I guess I don't think he ever played actual Chucky. He played like the friendly doll that would show up in some of these movies. Friendly Chucky, Good Guy Doll, Tommy Doll. And if we're headed down the horror route for that matter, Kane Hodder is in this movie. In fact, to hear, who was it? I think the director, Robert Radler, talk about it. He was just like, and we had to have Kane Hodder on set because he's such a blast or something like that. So crazy cast. And Sonny Landham is maybe top of that list. Like I said, the moment he's on there, you're like, oh, this guy's from something. He's from Predator, but also 48 Hours. I guess he was, speaking of which, a Walter Hill go-to for a good long while. And I think he's definitely channeling some of that in this movie. He is just fun to watch on camera. Go check out some Sonny Landham stuff.
Pretty good.
But would you believe if he knows how to beat Brachus because he's fought him before? So it's maybe a little contrived, but it's also formulaic. And I mean that in a complimentary way as well. Formulaic isn't always bad, especially if you, as an audience member, can lean in to the familiarity, but also if the movie finds a way to, it's got the performances, maybe the actors, or even just the package that makes that fine. And this has that, it's got the martial artists to make it look good and a bunch of bad guys you'll love to hate.
Don't you ever touch me!
Eventually, Tommy gets captured by those bad guys and is forced to run that gauntlet to get to Brachus. And the movie is maybe at its best when you're watching Philip Reed, Tommy, just get flawless victory after flawless victory on all of these guys. Unfortunately, it's maybe more interesting than the final fight with Brachus, which is downright slow, certainly comparatively, if I'm going to keep mentioning that final fight in the best of the best one, but also, again, the fights that come directly before it. Ralph Moeller, bless his heart, doing his best and is, a presence on camera and probably in the room, regardless. And the movie has done enough that the stakes and the emotions are there. In fact, the finale, that final fight, is intercut with Alex recruits Dehan, the Simon Reeves character, the bad guy from the first movie. And, I love it when they bring the bad guy back, and they had made up by the end of that movie anyways, honor and all that. So to see them team up and just tear through the club on their way to, I guess, rescuing Tommy, even though it ends in Alex entering the room to just yell, "Tommy!" and "Yeah!" as Tommy and Brackus go at it. And I don't want to, I think it is the comparison that's really not doing this justice. In a vacuum, like if you just took that fight out and watched it, it's good. Like, it's entertaining, absolutely. I just think there's a reason why I can't think of a single Arnold Schwarzenegger film where he's doing martial arts. Like, they dared to do that with Ralph Moeller, I guess. And there is some talk. In fact, Philip Ree has a great Art of Action episode that I probably mentioned when I talked about Best of the Best 1. But in that, he talks about how Best of the Best 2 may have been somewhat responsible or an inspiration for, in some small to large way, for MMA. Like, straight up. UFC launched 2 years later, I guess. And at the time that this movie came out, didn't seem like it was much of a thing. I'm out of my depth. I don't have the knowledge to agree or disagree with that statement. I would trust somebody like Philip Ree, and he does say that that was the intention. Not that, he didn't, he's like, I'm going to make this movie and launch MMA later. That wasn't his intention. His intention was to include many disciplines. He talked about how, I've got Taekwondo, which has the kicks, but it doesn't have the hands. I've got Hapkido, which has the joint locks and the throws. But again, I don't know enough, but it seems plausible. Possible, even, I'll say. And Best of the Best 2 is worth a watch, even if that's not true. How about that? So go check that out. Again, I think we're going to call it on the Best of the Best series at this point. If somebody wants to tell me that 3 and 4 are crazy, you go right ahead, and we'll see what we can do. For next week, though, let's see what we can do about Ring of Fire 2. That's right. No promises on this one. I know next to nothing about it. I just wanted to get a Dawn the Dragon film movie thing in here somewhere. And I don't know if that's going to be the one, but we'll give it a shot. If that's not the case, then no promises on American Ninja 5. So worst comes to worst, we're watching Surf Ninjas. Gosh darn it, because that's another one I remember from when I was a kid, and I really want to see how it holds up. So thanks for hanging out. As always, I really appreciate any watches and subscriptions and likings and Patreon. Oh my gosh, Patreon and Ko-Fi, where all the money goes. So if you have that in your heart, I love you all the more. But thank you, regardless, either way, all the time. Good night.